Picture a return pump. It's been running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 years straight. Never cleaned, never failed once, kept a whole reef alive that entire time. That pump costs about $60. Now look 3 feet away in the same sump. There's another pump doing the exact same job. That one cost $400. Here's what nobody at the fish store will tell you. The guy running the $60 pump is not broke. A lot of these reefers have money. Some of them have tanks worth more than a car. They could buy the expensive pump twice and not blink. They just figured out something the rest of the hobby is still paying to learn. There are 5 cheap reef brands almost nobody talks about out loud. You won't see them in the sponsored builds. You won't see them on the wall at the fancy reef store. But go on the forums where people have kept coral alive for 20 years, and these names come up again and again. Not as a joke, not as the sad option for people who can't afford better, but as the actual answer. By the end of this video, you'll know all 5, and you'll know the one honest catch on each one, because there's always a catch, and I'm not going to pretend there isn't. No sponsorships on this channel, no brand deals, just what the gear does and what it really costs. First, you need to understand one thing about how this hobby gets priced. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Moving water is not a hard problem anymore. Making light is not a hard problem anymore. The engineering got solved a long time ago. A pump is a motor and an impeller. A light is a bunch of diodes and a driver. That's it. That technology is cheap now. It's cheap for everybody. That includes the companies charging you $400 for it. So when a brand skips the trade show booth, skips the sponsored reviews, skips the middleman, and just sells you the pump directly, they can hand you almost everything the flagship does for a quarter of the price. The forums already know this. The people getting paid by the big brands have a very good reason to stay quiet about it. So let's not stay quiet. Number 5. The budget DC powerhead. Let's start with the one almost every experienced reefer has run at some point, even if they won't admit it in public. The budget DC powerhead. You know the type. Funny model numbers, sold direct, half the time you're buying it off Amazon or some reef site you've barely heard of. The snobs love to look down on these things. Then you peek in their sump and there's 2 of them running. Here's why they stay. For water movement per dollar, nothing beats them. Nothing even comes close. Strong flow, controllable, a little app or a little control box. And people run these for years. I've read the same story in thread after thread. 5 years in, still going, still quiet. Now the honest catch. And listen close, because this is the exact thing the big brands use against them. On the cheap pumps, the part that dies is usually not the motor. It's the little controller or the power supply. When it goes, people panic and think the whole pump is dead. It isn't. Most of the time, that's a $30 part. You order it overnight and you're back in business. But let's say the worst happens. Let's say you replace the whole thing every couple of years. Do the math with me. 2 of these pumps, replaced once, still cost less than 1 flagship. And by the time yours wears out, there's a newer model on the shelf anyway. That's not settling for less. That's a person who did the math and kept the difference for coral. The experienced reefers know this. That's why they keep a cheap backup on the shelf and stop worrying about it. Number 4. The half the price, same app wavemaker. Now let's go one step up the ladder. There's a whole class of wavemaker that sits right in the middle. Not the rock-bottom budget pump, not the $500 flagship, about half the flagship price. And this is the one that people who can afford anything are quietly buying. Here's why it's the insider pick. It runs nearly the same control app the expensive one does. In a lot of cases, it pushes more flow out of a smaller pump, and it's quieter. I've lost count of how many reefers say the same thing. They ran the flagship for years, tried one of these on a whim, never went back. Think about what that means. These aren't broke people trading down. These are people who owned the expensive pump, lived with it, and decided the cheaper one was just the better buy. That's the strongest recommendation there is. So, what's the catch? There's a cord going into the tank. That's it. That's the whole trade. The flagship's big trick is that the motor connects through the glass, so there's no wire in the water. And I'll be straight with you, nobody has managed to copy that. So if a totally wireless look is what you care about, you actually can't get it cheaper. But if a cord tucked in the corner of your tank doesn't bother you, you just saved a couple $100 a pump, and you gave up nothing that touches your coral. Number 3. The Budget Black Box LED. Now, let's talk about light. This is where people get emotional, and this is where they spend the most money. The budget LED, the black box, the ones that have been around forever and look like nothing special hanging over a tank. Reefers have grown serious coral under these for over a decade. Soft coral, LPS, even SPS, the stuff that's supposed to need the expensive light. Here's what people miss. A lot of what you pay for on a premium light is not coral growth. It's the show, the shimmer, the pretty cloud effects, stuff that looks amazing in a video and does nothing for your acropora. There's an old story that gets passed around the forums. A guy who managed a saltwater store took apart an expensive fixture and a cheap one, side by side. Underneath, the guts weren't that different. The expensive one just had a nicer light show. What actually grows coral is two things: enough intensity hitting the coral and the right spectrum. Real blue, real violet, real UV to drive that color and that glow. Plenty of budget lights deliver exactly that. Now, the catch, and it's a real one. The cheapest boxes are bare bones. Maybe you get a timer and a dimmer and nothing else. No slow sunrise ramp. Sometimes a clunky app or no app at all. And the housing can be big and ugly, so it's happier hidden in a canopy than hanging over a fancy rimless tank. But for coral growth per dollar, these things punch so far above their price, it makes the $400 light hard to justify. One warning though, don't go too small. The way people fail with a cheap light isn't quality, it's buying one that's too weak for the size of their tank. Buy enough light for your tank, and you're golden. Before we get to the top two, let me give you 3 quick checks. These separate a smart, cheap buy from a regret, because cheap and junk are not the same thing. The whole game is knowing the difference. Check 1. Can you replace the part that wears out? This is the big one. A cheap pump where the impeller pops out for $15 is a bargain that lasts a decade. A cheap pump that's sealed shut is a countdown timer. Same with the power supply. If you can just order a new one when it dies, the pump isn't dead. It's a $30 fix. Rebuildable beats sealed every single time. Check 2. Match the power to your tank, not to the price. I said it with the lights, and it's worth saying again. This is the #1 way people get burned going cheap. Buy for the size of your tank. A cheap pump or light that's the right size works great. One that's too small just grows algae and makes you blame the brand. Check 3. Be honest about the durability trade. Some budget gear you might rebuild or rebuy every couple of years. If you know that going in and the math still beats the flagship, then it's a smart buy, not a compromise. The people who get burned expected a flagship to last forever at a budget price. Go in with clear eyes and you'll never feel cheated. If this is saving you money, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This channel follows the hardware, not the marketing, and I'm making a lot more of these. Alright, the top 2. These are the ones I really wanted to tell you about. Number 2. The value skimmer with a replaceable pump. A protein skimmer feels like magic to new reefers, so it's the thing people are most scared to buy cheap. And that fear is exactly what the premium brands are counting on. Here's the truth. A skimmer is a body and a pump pushing a cloud of tiny bubbles. That's the whole machine. The magic is not in the logo on the acrylic. The magic is in the pump and whether the thing is built to be worked on. So, the value skimmers worth your money are the ones with a standard, off-the-shelf pump you can replace. Here's why that matters. In year 3 or 4, the pump wears out. Every pump does. On the buy-it-for-life skimmer, that's a cheap part you swap in an afternoon. On the sealed, fancy one, you might be shopping for a whole new skimmer. Reefers run these value skimmers for years. Same performance. They just skipped the premium acrylic and the etched name. You're not giving up skimming. You're giving up the brand tax. The catch is small and honest. A budget skimmer usually takes more tuning to dial in. You'll spend a week getting the water level and the air just right instead of it working perfectly out of the box. Once it's dialed, it just runs. A week of fiddling to save $200 is a trade most reefers take all day long. Number 1. The small American brand that answers the phone. This is the one I most wanted you to hear. It's the one almost nobody talks about, and it's the best kept secret in the whole hobby. There's a category of small brand, often American, often family-run, or basically one guy and a warehouse, and they do something the giants can't. They take a proven, reliable pump, they sell it direct, so there's no middleman markup, and then they do the thing that actually matters. They answer the phone. Let me tell you the story that sold me on this. There's a brand that's basically a rebranded version of that famous budget pump we talked about. Same reliable guts, running for people 5-6 years deep, but with real US customer service behind it. And there's a reefer on the forums who tells this story. He emailed the company with a problem. He got an answer back at 11:30 at night. Not a ticket number, not a bot, the actual owner. At 11:30 at night, fixing his problem. That's the thing the $400 flagship can't sell you. You get performance that's right there with the big names. You get a real warranty with a real human behind it. And you're funding a small business instead of a marketing department. The reefers who find these brands stay loyal for life, and they tell their reef club and nobody else. There's only one catch, and it's the reason this stays a secret. You will never find these on a big store shelf. There's no shop steering you to them because there's no middleman making money on the sale. You only find them by talking to people who've been doing this a long time, or by watching a video like this one, which is kind of the whole point. 5 brands, 5 categories, one pattern connecting all of them. The money went into the pump, the diodes, and the build, not the booth, the logo, and the sponsored review. The reefers running this gear aren't cutting corners and hoping nobody notices. They did the math. They accepted the honest trade-offs. The $30 power supply, the week of tuning, the cord in the tank, the light that lives in a canopy. And they walked away with a reef that looks every bit as good as the guy who spent 4 times more, with a lot more money left over for coral. Those 3 checks work on anything cheap in this hobby. Can you replace the part that wears out? Is it powerful enough for your tank? And do you know the real durability deal going in? Pass all 3, and cheap stops being a downgrade. It's just information most people don't have, and now you do. So here's what I want from you. Drop your best budget reef buy in the comments. Tell me how long it lasted, the good and the bad. Let's build a real list down there, so the next reefer standing in the store, about to overpay, finds the gold mine instead. And if you want the other side of this coin, the premium brands charging you 3 and 4 times the price for a logo, I've got a full breakdown of who's robbing you blind. It's linked right up there. Subscribe. This channel follows the hardware, not the marketing. I'll see you in the next one.